aerospace field. So yeah, that's me. And I'll pass it on to Rowena.
It's really inspiring to hear both of you ladies on how your journey came about. Kind of similar with mine. Mine was uh, again accident. I happened to be in England, staying with my family back home in the UK. I grew up there from 11 years old, and I was actually working with a team of engineers, architects, designers, graphic designers, for to come up with a resilient school in response to United Nations. Again, how can we build a resilient architecture in places of vulnerable countries such as Philippines. And I worked with a group of people in various, skill sets uh, to come up with a proposal. And fortunately, our team had an honorable award back and displayed back in the Philippine of Education, I believe in Manila. This was with Ilafias and other United Nations architect specialists in New York City. And at that time, I had to go back to California. I wasn't working then, and I need to look for work. And I was looking online and came up with this long list of highly technical requirements that I kind of qualified, but it wasn't what I was working in previously. But I am very familiar with the whole process of designs and productions, a little bit of manufacturing in all scope of build, but nothing in space. Everything was all based on Earth problem solving, structural, highly technical response to any problems, whether it's climate change, architecture, bridges, building, urban planning, this kind of, but nothing in space. I said, okay, let's try this. And so the interview was booked, and I said, okay, I need to go get my flight and head back to California for the interview, not knowing whether I get it or not. And luckily, it worked out fine because there was a gap between analog technology and digital technology, and I met both of those requirements, uh, bridging between old and new technology, which I have been building actually since I could remember, um, since school. So I was really into how everything comes together, how things are built. But how that came about is really I started understanding the arts. It wasn't actually, straight out of math or physics but I actually, turned out to be okay with physics, wasn't very good at chemistry, but anything that moves, anything that you can get your hands dirty and build stuff, that was my kind of thing. But and so architecture was the kind of um a beginning of my journey, but dive more technical, combining that discipline with technology. And so ever since then, I've been working with companies to make their tech infrastructure as efficient as possible, up to date, so that it ties in with their standard protocol. Because there's always a conflict of interest with, these technology are constantly evolving, and they have a tight protocol and to meet. And so I was able to kind of find ways to be resourceful and bridge those old and new approach. And so I somehow fit the need in aerospace, and the rest I just had to learn everything about what they do. And just the background, it's actually sensors. We specialize in sensors across the board of every deep space exploration. And so that's why I don't represent one my company, because we work very closely with all the big players. We're the top 10 private contractors that NASA entrusts since the beginning of the birth of NASA. It's been from the get-go. And so it is a very old school company. And to bridge the new tech, I was able to bring those two languages together somehow, miracle. I think that skill set that I have, the creative art, made a big contribution to how I um, uh, propelled into a more challenging space problem that is always innovating. That's not quite unlike Earth. So yeah, thank you. That was really um, my share for now. Thanks.
Wow, that was amazing. The three of you. I'm so envious because when I was a young boy, um, I wanted to be in the aerospace. Actually, I wanted to be an astronaut or a pilot, but I never ended up in either careers. So that's I wish I had the same accent well, I don't know. Um, but anyway, um, those are amazing what do you call this, the origin stories. So next up is, did you see yourself being in this industry when you were young? And also, who inspired you on your journey getting into the aerospace industry? Let's shuffle it a bit. Let's start with Riza, and then Ari, and then Rowena.
Oh, no, I think I didn't really see myself being in this industry. Um, as I mentioned, that it's kind of um, engineering in general was is kind of more encouraged with men. At least like when I was growing up, so for me it wasn't really something I saw myself in. But as I said, really what got me into it was people planting the seeds in my brain of the possibility, and that's what I wish I had earlier in my life, was just people saying, "Oh, this is a possible field for you to go into," or, "Hey, there's this field called aerospace, and it's not super exclusive. You can be in it too." I think that the teachers that really put that in the forefront of my mind were pivotal to getting me to where I am today, into the industry that I am so very, very passionate about now. I mean, it was the space field is just amazing, and so I feel very thankful for the people that did encourage and that did plant the seed in my brain. So yeah, I think Ari was next.
Yes, ma'am. Well, JP, it's funny that you say that you wanted to be an astronaut when you were little, because I proudly remember declaring to my entire kindergarten class that I wanted to be a magician. And we'll see. You see how that turned out. No, did I ever see myself in aerospace? No, not really. I think the same can be said for Rowena. The same can be said for Riza. It's not something we grew up with just because, I don't know, it wasn't really presented as an option. It was there in the background of your mind, but you notice how there's always that, it's a boy in an astronaut suit, or, it's men who are in engineering, and there was nothing explicit keeping us out from it, but it wasn't necessarily like, oh, go over there to the aerospace side of the career fair and talk to them. It just kind of happened like that. What got me into the industry, I'd say, uh, like Riza, most of my family's also in the medical field. There was a lot of not disapproving clicks of the tongue, but there was a little bit of like, oh, so you're not going to be a nurse? Oh, okay. All right. What got me into the industry was, I mean, sheer grit, sheer will, the sheer desire to be part of something bigger and connect with my higher purpose in the universe. I will say what kept me there, though, was probably friends. It's the kindred spirits I found. It's Riza, it's my bestie. It's the people that you find, and it's the tribe and the connections that you make that kept me in aerospace. Because I could have easily walked away, and I'm sure it was way harder for the women who first started out in the industry to forge their own way and make their own friendships. But I'd say it was mostly me, and it was my sheer grit, and a little bit for holler for my grandpa, God rest his soul. He was an engineer for McDonnell Douglas, actually, when he first immigrated from the Philippines. And I'd like to say that I'm carrying on his legacy. So it was the grandfather, it was sheer grit, that's what got me into the industry, but it's really the friends, it's the kinships, it's the friendships, it's the lifelong people that you get the privilege of calling family for the rest of your life. That's kept me here. What about you, Rowena?
Thank you, ladies, for sharing. Yes, same with me. I grew up pretty much, the life of in the late 70s, my Gen X, and the 80s were different. Life in the Philippines growing up, I still have I still carry a heavy root, traditional Filipino. And being exposed to something like this is not on on the horizon. However, my father um, was a former MD doctor and wanted me to get into the medical field. But after relocating, my mother married British who happened to be mechanical engineer. Family have a background in the Formula One racing, and they're kind of into that whole mechanical rather than the mechanics of the human body. And yeah, I was never inspired to be a doctor during my childhood, but I was always fascinated and curious about how things are put together, how do they work. And I think with a curious mind, and also the timing of being in the West, I got to watch sci-fi. We didn't have TV. I didn't do a lot. I watch a lot of sci-fi. My world was the outdoor, the field, the dirt, and so growing up in adapting the Western culture exposed me to pieces of these ideals of what young women like me could look like. And fortunately, I was given more of a freedom by my stepfather with a Western mind to get to choose whatever I want. And so that exercising that sense of freedom, that is non-Filipino tradition, and my mom was not educated. There wasn't a representation of such when it comes to anything technical. Only my stepdad. And I said, well, I'm interested in drawing. I like to put things together. So can you help me? How can I make this work? So he really helped expose me to the basic principle of engineering and moving parts. And since then I get to explore all areas of myself, of what it means to create, design, and build. And through that process, it just became a natural evolution, like a stepping stone through my career. And however, it hasn't been easy going through that, because I was still around my teenage time. My English language wasn't to par, and then going through the university was the most pressured, challenging moment, because it requires me to produce work in English. And my sense of confidence then was pretty, was conflicted and a lot of times. And but fortunately I got through. Flying colors passed, and the rest was just sustaining the career through there. So it's been an ongoing development, pieces by pieces, and just being patient to where it will lead me. But in terms of aerospace, the closest inspiration is watching a lot of Star Trek. I'm a big sci-fi, and I'm a natural explorer, as you can see, in my Instagram. I love being outdoors and exploring, challenging myself in extreme element. And I think I'm aware that growing up with the background in lifestyle in the Philippines, being outside, living off the land, really hands-on and get dirty, it's just been in me the whole way through the whole journey. I just didn't know how that fits in the West with the professional title, I guess, or purpose of contribution to a professional job that is well spoken around the world. So who would have thought aerospace would and be my career at that, to kind of be part of that list on my career path. So yeah, it was never really, there was no one in my family. They were indigenous, part Igorok, some part half Kapampangan, and from Bisaya Dumaguete. So my family side is very indigenous, living off the land, dark skin as it can be, non office related of any kind. There was no influence, but with the timing, the environment, with the right people, that's how I got supported. And then the rest was just my commitment and my curiosity to keep moving and just stay on the game and be part of this amazing, work that the West has able to expose me. And I always say, I promise myself that I've been gifted this life, a Western life. I will never take advantage of it. I will always be grateful for what gifted to me after knowing that my life in the Philippines of impoverished and lack of, resources uh, is nowhere near what the West can offer. And so I always keep that in my heart whenever things I struggle at work or at home. I'm always going back to my roots, and I think a lot of that kept me on this path, as hard as it was, to experience it fully. And so I thank the Philippines way of life, their culture, um, gave has been a big contribution to get me to expose me to this amazing experience I've had for so long. And yeah, and here I am talking about it, which I would never do. I was more comfortable talking to my computer than I do with people. So exercising, communication with humans, so was not natural for me for a long time. But now I'm coming out of that shell and share that part of myself, which is really inspiring. And I'm so glad to have these wonderful women and more to share their story and pave way that it's possible for any Filipinos who came from a complete different background and transform it into something amazing. And it just need, I think, with the right support system. That's one thing that lacked, like Ari and Lisa was saying. There was no representation. There was a lack of it. So it's something that's been in my mind to be part of next in my journey. So thank you.
Yes, those are like Rowena. I was also heavily inspired by science fiction movies, and like Ari too, and probably Risa as well. Um, Ari mentioned The Martian. If I don't know if a lot of people noticed, but almost half the crew were women, and there are other films as well, like Gravity, which I would assume 80% of airtime was Sandra Bullock. Um, and lots of other films as well. And Star Trek, for example, was very inclusive, right? It was very multiracial, um, balanced gender. So I guess science and technology picks up a lot from um, from science fiction as well. So I wanna go into address the gender equality issue. I want to ask, in your experience, how was the aerospace industry different from other workplaces or other engineering fields? Like, what were the challenges in the workplace as a woman? Let's take Louisa first, and then Rowena, and then Ari.
Oh, there's definitely some differences. It's, when you look at, even at school, when I attended the university, there were more women in the fields of civil and chemical engineering than there were in aerospace or mechanical engineering. So you can already tell from the standpoint of the people that are going into the universities to study in these fields, that there is some tip of the scale towards one gender in some of the areas, and there's preferences for I guess what's quote unquote popular as the field of engineering for women, or what people perceive people that go into this industry or into the engineering field would go into. So I want to say that there were about um, maybe two to maybe a class of 30 people, so two women in a class of 30 people where I attended. And then when I started working, in terms of the engineers, it's also around the same ratio. While as if you look in the industrial, and as I said, civil, where you're more in the that side of engineering, I did notice more women in the field. But in general, there's disparity across the board. There still could be more women in the industry, um, especially in aerospace. So I think now, in just a few years that I've been in the field, in the industry, I have been seeing it turn for the better. I want to say, like, my own team, we're almost at the 50-50 mark, in terms of women ratio, women to men ratio. And same thing with the other teams that I've been seeing internally. So I see that at least the tides are turning, I should say, and that change is coming, and the diversity in terms of gender is it's starting to happen. I think more and more women are coming into the field and staying in the field. It's definitely a lot more encouraged now. There's focused groups specific to provide resources for women, because we haven't been in the industry for, or well, there's um, less of us in the industry. Sometimes you might feel a sense of oh, maybe I don't belong here, like the imposter syndrome, stuff like that. So then there's resources like groups and people brought in to give talks to help women overcome that in the industry. And I've seen a lot of companies provide that kind of support. And there's also, just in general, a change in how the women in the industry are. Before, I've definitely heard there's competition amongst the women, and that before, like, the kind of the previous generation of engineers kind of are fighting for that position. But I feel like there's a lot of change that's happened, and I feel that a lot of the reason, as Ari has pointed earlier and as Rowena has pointed earlier, is a lot of the reasons why there's more women in the industry and at the same time staying in the industry is because of the fact that we have such a amazing support group with all of the other women that are in there around us. So yeah, I went on and on about that, but yeah, I can definitely tell that the equality is, it's coming, it's getting work done, and it's progressing towards a more positive, um I guess, mode. Yeah, that's it. I didn't know who was after me. I think it was Rowena.
Rowena, yes, yes.
Thank you, Rita. Yes. For me, in my experience, for several years working, it's very niche, and and it's very a niche compared to other engineers I've worked with, civil structural engineers here on Earth. And it's because our company specializes in deep space exploration, they have to deal with extreme environments. So their their way of working and their relations with NASA for the longest that they have been is definitely a big challenge in terms of the generational changes that's happening. A lot of the colleagues of mine, on average, have worked there for almost 40 years, and so the mind and the heart, um, it's a struggle to shift that. of acceptance of the new generations and how things are changing. Particularly, the technology has influenced a lot of how aerospace work nowadays. However, there is still, they're very close, tight in terms of their security, and so the company I work for really focus that their specialty is analog technology that has no digital any applications in their innovations, and to this day is proven to be a proven record for the longer it has been for over 50 years. It existed alongside NASA. And so that tells a lot also of the culture that the people that have worked there. So there weren't many young, but I did have a young um, electrical engineer, female, Hispanic, and then I worked with a manager, a male Chinese American, and then another young male um, who was Indian background from India, but American upbringing as well. So I could tell that the older leaders in this field, the company I work with the culture they have, are really realizing that diversifying and pools of skill, not just the talent of skills, but also the colors to expose these, us to the older generation who have existed there for the last 4 decades has definitely faced some challenges. And so, but, it is for the best because the leaders recognize the importance of, there's going to be the older generations who are going to retire, and so they need to start being more open minded to bring all kinds of skills that are going to continue this deep exploration that is so needed, because a lot of our programs can last up to, you know, 20 years or more. And and because it's so niched, it does has its challenges of recruiting the right people with the right skills, but they're becoming more open to background of colors. Especially, it helps the ones that have been there for a long time to experience, a different way of thinking and our approach to problems in the work, to contribute in the team. And so I'm very hopeful that a lot of the top leaders are really doing their part to really make this more accessible and friendly for some who may not believe in themselves that they can be part of this amazing work in space, whether it's all around our orbit or deep space exploration. And again, that's my observation, is very niche, and it does require, some level of commitment to learn. But without a doubt, I also learned the hard way that you don't need to know everything, because every engineer become even more niched down to a micro level. So there's a lot of engineers I've worked alongside in the aerospace in my team who are broken even more niched in their specialty. And then together, we became like the Star Trek. I always joke around with them and say, I imagine all of us to be the Star Trek, team, and I see myself being this and you being that, and they just joke around and they appreciate that kind of attitude that, uh, as someone who have traveled 3 continents with a little bit more grace. And I think that was really needed to break the ice a little bit in the workplace. That it's not always serious and just hunker down with your calculators and your measuring equipment and being on the lab for X number of hours. And so I am definitely inspired that uh, it's really helpful that the leaders are waking up, recognizing that the world is changing. In order to stay and become, part of the history of what the future of, space is going to look like, leadership is communication and leadership is going to be a critical important in sustaining both, not just the the company that have existed that's going to contribute to companies like Risa and Blue Origin and Parker Aerospace, so who have paved the way at the very beginning. They're also recognizing that technology is a big influence in this journey. So and I see that they want to open themselves up to many skilled people who can actually contribute, that's so needed. Like I said, this is a space problem, not Earth problem. So that's the difference. The challenges is much more extreme, and but I love it. Actually, that's what got me going. I just love, everything about how challenging it is compared to any other design problem I've worked with here on the. It's never been done before most of the time, and that's what keeps me inspired. And when it takes off, I'm just like, wow, it's out there for 20 years or more, and, doing what it needs to do to stay alive. So, yeah, it really warms my heart, and I'm just so even more inspired to share this with amongst my Filipino friends and outside too that wants to support this space. And yeah, thank you. That was really enlightening for me to actually answer that question actually, because it only takes one question and then like, oh, that's really how I felt about this work despite all the challenges. It never it you know Nothing kind of weighs me down when knowing that something mysterious out there that is still untouched. We're doing it on the ground here, like what Risa and Ari is contributing. We are a big part of the system, and I know it's going to be inspiring for these ladies who are going to be paving the way for Filipinos and the minorities, particularly, and women. Yeah, I'm inspired. Just listening. Thank you.
We're inspired by you, Rowena. You laid the foundation so that we could, like, what's the phrase? You walked so that we could run. So thanks
Yep.
to you. Yeah, 100%. Thank you for raising us up. You led the way for us. You really did pave the way for us. In terms of how is the aerospace industry different from other workplaces, I will say straight off the bat, I mean, intentionally or not, sometimes you will find yourself walking into one meeting or more and you are the only woman in the room. And I was at first taught to just ignore it. And it's just like, oh, just, act like everyone else, act like you're one of the guys. And I think early on in my career, that was a huge discredit to who I was. I was then taught another script, which is embrace your differences, embrace your femininity, and embrace the perspective you bring as a woman to a meeting, to a kickoff, to a board meeting. Embrace your perspective and embrace your voice, because oftentimes than not, you are the one who actually breaks up groupthink. Because, I mean, I hate to say it, but when you get a whole bunch of people who have grown up together or worked together for a set number of years, sometimes it's just easier to say like, yep, 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 yep. And then they overlook something and you're the one voice of reason that goes, did anyone think about this? And the whole room falls silent because no one thought about the thing that no one thought about because no one was brave enough to break the groupthink. In terms of other workplaces, I mean, I'm not going to stand here and say that sexism doesn't exist. It is very much alive and well. I'd say it's certainly more prevalent in certain groups than others. But you got to realize when you walk into the room, you can't control how others perceive you. You can't control how other people talk to you, but you can control you. You are responsible and you are 100% control of your reactions, how you interact with folks, how you either address or pivot off really off-color jokes, whether it be about race, religion, creed, or gender. And it is up to you to set that tone when you walk into the room. Like, okay, am I going to tolerate this or am I going to stand up to it? Am I going to let the jokes fly, or do I pick your battles because you got to know which ones you let slide versus which ones you're like, that was really not cool. If you could not make that joke, that would be fantastic. I do agree with both Risa and Rowena's point. I am seeing, hooray, a whole bunch of women, new, fresh, bright ideas, bright-eyed, brilliant women entering the space. I do love the fact that we've stopped calling ourselves female engineers, and we are just engineers. We are no longer female project and program managers. We are just program managers, Why is there suddenly a gender associated with every occupation? No man walks into the room and says, hello, everyone, I'm a male engineer. No, you say you're an engineer. You are what you say you are. Drop the female. Just don't. It's an invisible script that you write in your head. In terms of future challenges or the growth that I see and the equality in the workplace, it's slow. I think Rowena touched up on it. It can get a little disheartening and it gets a little isolating when you are repeatedly the only woman in the room, and it does get a little sad. But that's what you find your tribe for. You got to find the people at work who, like, as you're passing each other in the lunchroom, you give them the thumbs up and you're like, you're awesome. And they go like, no, you're awesome. And you trade those affirmations and you pump each other up. You keep each other going. And it doesn't necessarily have to be women. It can also be men, as long as they're allies. Find your tribe. Find the people who are willing to pump you up, tell you it's okay, and serve as that confirmation of a disaffirming experience. Like, oftentimes I'll text our friend group with Vivian and Risa, and I'll be like, was this okay? Like, someone made this joke. Is that okay? And they'll be like, no, that was not okay. And I'm like, okay, good. I was just making sure, because that seemed really, really off color. So it is still very much a male dominated field, but we are seeing a lot of people retire. It is the silver tsunami. All the boomers are slowly exiting the industry, or if they're being brought back, it's on a contractor basis. And guess what? The new blood is coming in, and it just happens to be female. And I love to see it. I'm here for it. And I'm very proud of the business resource groups that Parker Aerospace have. We have Pure W. I know that Blue Origin has quite a few business resource groups for a whole bunch of race, religions, and creeds. I'm happy that NASA is supporting diversity efforts. These are all things that I'm proud to say maybe didn't exist 20 years ago because a champion didn't exist 20 years ago. And we are becoming our own champions for our voices, our stories, and the diversity and perspective that we bring to the industry. Yeah. So back to you, JP. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Those were very insightful. So if you're in any agreement, it looks like that we're headed towards in the right direction. So the question now is how quick we can get there. Am I right?
Tomorrow.
So,
No, today.
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 It's happening
Wow.
now. No, just kidding.
right. Yeah. So those are very insightful things, and thank you for sharing them. And it's good to know that it's a refreshing tone to hear now that we're in a good position and we're headed in the right direction. We have our coordinates set, right? Um, so up next, we'll first take a break, just a minute or two, and just a reminder to anyone who wishes to speak or has any questions, you can message it to any of the speakers or me or the Makati House account, and we'll read it out loud later for the speakers to answer if they are legally allowed to. And when we return, we will be geeking out. Um, we'll be we'll ask them where the nukes are. No, just kidding. We'll ask them. Well, we'll ask a little bit technical stuff, but not so technical stuff. Like where the industry is headed. And maybe some tips to our young professionals or upcoming aerospace engineers. Yeah, so stay tuned. We'll be back after this uh, short message. Welcome to the Twitter space of Makati House. Our mission is to help Filipinos help other Filipinos. Women are widely recognized to be successful in the area of fashion and beauty. They are expected to behave with finesse as if their capacity is limited to just the so-called feminine careers. But there are women who break the gender bias and are willing to take off their heels and remove their makeup in order to succeed in male-dominated fields in science and engineering. We have invited 3 women in the aerospace industry to share their journey in breaking the bias. Join our chat with Ari Leon from Parker Aerospace, Riza May from Blue Origin, and Rowena Lugo. A reminder, our space is recorded and being streamed live to Facebook, YouTube, and Clubhouse. Once again, welcome to Makati House. All right. Sorry about that. I think it came out a little too soft. I'm still having technical issues with Twitter Spaces after several weeks of doing this. Um, so yeah, welcome back, and we are joined by Ari, Riza, and Rowena. So next question, we'll start nerding out. Um, what do you see in the future of the aerospace industry? How big is the potential in this industry? Not necessarily in the United States, maybe in general, or maybe also in the Philippines if you have any information about it. Um, because we have some students who will be graduating this year from Ateneo de Davao University, and um, yeah. So, what kind of jobs are will they be seeing? And apart from, I know Riza is working in space tourism, and Ari's working in defense, and Rowena has been working um, with bridging the old school and the new school stuff. It was really interesting, because I was reading about the old processors on Voyager and how they had to how they had to build special chips that are rated for high radiation in deep space. So very interesting stuff, things you wouldn't think of on the ground. So yeah, why don't we start with Rowena? I know you have a lot of you have a let's from the past, but I know you have a lot of things, but yeah, let's see. Let's get the brief summary of it.
Okay, I will do my best to kind of do my best to, what is it, the science communication that kind of like makes sense. And so, I'm not by all means, specialist engineer. This is learned working alongside my engineers, and with just basic engineer understanding, I kind of get the gist of how everything kind of comes together. So, like I said, this the technology that is used has been in the works since NASA ever existed. And so analog technology is the primary product that measures pressure techniques and output, which means there is no digital in them. It just simply means the analog is a continuous measure of the pressure input and kind of provide a continuous like voltage output um, applied to pressure. And so these are sensors, transducers of such. And so in terms of, the old school technology is purely analog. And I'm going to explain why. Because the digital signal processes is kind of a segment of data. It's not continuous data, and so the signals is, even though the digital is very fast in terms of its processing, it doesn't have what analog can stream, and this is tied into specific, like I said, the niche of this space. It has to meet reliability, and there are weak points when using digital applications, and the main threats with digital signal processing in space, for instance, like microprocessors and microcontrollers and microchips, it can experience some sort of failures if it's exposed to electronic magnetic events such as strong solar flares, nuclear events, space radiation, the electronic magnetic pulses, and so forth. So, they're having to deal with these constraints in space. And so additionally, a lot of these digital programs can corrupt as well. For instance, software bugs, miscellaneous kind of coding, or, who knows, in terms of security. And so NASA cannot afford, when they're sending out a unmanned machine to do exploring, to collect data, they only have one time shot. And so that's why companies such as ours is used for as long as it has, because it has proven record, and it's been able to deliver in the longevity that it's meant to, which is, could be as long as 20 plus years, to conduct its service out there and provide the necessary information back on Earth. And so that's from the technological side. But in terms of the mechanical, they have the capacity to design robust materials that is able to endure and protect these sensitive, tech pieces, electronic pieces that are within this casing. And so they have to kind of, meet a lot of the vibration, shock temperature, the shock and the temperatures and the overpressures in a lot of these, throughout the journey from rocket all the way to landing. And so, so that is the two main part of the requirements for our company to meet, because it's a census, so it's very, very fragile and very sensitive technology, which is, a lot of the electrical engineers use. And then we have another engineers that specialize in a lot of the actual materials, casing, and the pressures and the vibration. A lot of these have been applied in a lot of a lot of the programs. The current rocket right now, the Artemis one, I can never pronounce it. I was part of that. It's we're contributing a part of the propulsion sensors. We have several sensors all across the rocket from top to bottom, and I think dozens of them. There's as part of that, that's this historic rocket that's about to launch. There is another sensor that controls the thruster fuel pressures for the launch abort system. And then the other one is as another sensor, ECLSS, that controls pressure for cooling and ventilation systems. So these sensors can withstand shocks and vibration, because it's a mega rocket. That was been the biggest challenge for this rocket, is the vibration, not just the human that are going to be in this rocket, but also the parts, the mechanical parts. And then for instance, the solar probe that's going on to the sun right now. It's an important cooling system sensors that are our purpose of our technology, the analog technology. That's a big instrument to get it to the sun as close as possible, to kind of keep the cooling system circulate liquid coolant from not overheating, and keep it alive as close to the sun as possible, enough to collect all of the data needed to learn about the health and the well-being of the sun. In terms of insights, this is a census for the landers. This was extremely unique for our company. It's to do with low pressure device with ultra quiet electronics, super low electrical circuit and noise, and it's really measuring the seismometer measuring Mars quakes instead of the sensors of in atmospheric. And so the pressure sensors is used to detect pressure changes from passing weather systems on Mars, and also to kind of the weather system actually is able to deflect some of those on the surface of Mars. And but differentiating between that and the Mars quake was an important differentiation in instruments. So that was our responsibility to create pressure sensors that's able to only detect, focus on the quake difference from the atmosphere. We've done Atlas 5, Delta 4, Vulcan launch vehicle propulsion. Again, sensors measuring, gas pressures above liquid hydrogen and oxygen tanks. So these are sensors that measures everything that keeps this machine alive and ticking, so that the team on the ground can actually know what the health and the well-being of these unmanned machines. Another one that's my favorite is actually Ghost T. This is, along working with NOAA, it's really the census is to monitor, the motion, mobility, the thrusters that's moving around the orbit. And so, that their census, of our company's census, has been in the work for 20 plus years on a lot of these satellites that currently remain orbit on our Earth right now. And so, keep the location and moving on the right path, orbiting Earth, and overcome gravitational forces. And so this is one of the list of programs I was part of. The ones I wasn't part of is James Webb Space Telescope, and their census has helped the thrusters move into and keep it within the second land range orbit, 1 million miles from Earth. And so again, whether it's to measure precious gas, censoring, cooling, these are like us, like human, our senses of eyes and ears, and the sense of feeling, of making sure that we're not feeling the pain or the burn. That what really inspired me when I started working with them. It was like, how about the human senses, to know what the limitation is and how can we overcome what we're put into extreme environment and last as long as we can over there. And, I say Ghost T, the satellite, because before I got into aerospace, I was already working in mapping with the ESRI. I've done some presentation working on natural resources for the government here in the US, for the Department of Interior, and did some studies on the impact of human activities, and the power of mapping and the GPS to locate and really understand the condition of the Earth's well-being. So our satellite is a big part of that innovation, and that's what made me realize a lot of these tools and innovation that's out there on space do have an impact and change, the benefit here on Earth. Whether on our phone that we can navigate our way from A to B, or to actually study the social and the political and the natural resources that's currently here on Earth. And once I understood a lot of the deep space that we're exploring, and being part of, it just brings me to tears how deep and intimate a lot of these pieces, this machine innovation is being created, not just because it's a space and it's attractive that you work in aerospace and it's all machine stuff, but it does manifest into like, I'm already using this, myself. I get to benefit that the satellite is sending me signals of GPS coordinate, and I can plot that on the map, and so that I can make better decisions about how I want to contribute and make an impact here on Earth, whether it's for farming, whether it's for identifying where all the crisis of the natural disasters that's happening on Earth, and how to distribute resources amongst populations to help others who does not have access to resources. And so it's beyond than what I expected, what working in aerospace actually looked like, until I got so intimate of just being part of a very niche you know innovation that's going to be plugged into these mega structures. um, it's beyond me, and it's even to this day, that's just, I still reflect on it, like, was I part of this? And the Solar Pocket Probe was a big one. I started from the get-go from that, and but the vision has been in existence for decades, from Parker himself, who recently passed away. And so all I'm saying here is that you don't need to know everything, everything, but you get to really learn this on the job, and it takes time, but be patient. You'll start to see the bigger picture of your big contribution to these amazing work. And I'm just fortunate enough to specialize in deep space exploration, because I got to learn planets like Europa, what's in there and what's our mission and goals of what our our contribution to our innovation is going to play a part on studying this planet and how that's going to contribute back on Earth. It's always going to have some sort of inspiration and benefit back on Earth. So I have no doubt that this is not just a fun, like taking the money off the people's tax or anything. They do play a big part in our evolution here on Earth. Once we understand our neighbors of other planets and what that actually means, and for us moving forward. So I'm very hopeful that I didn't know anything about aerospace. You just gotta focus, and if this is the path you want, go. Don't be afraid to ask as many questions. Ask any of us who've lived it and who's currently working on it. Would be happy to share what's going on and how that's going to look in the future. And don't worry, you don't need to know everything. Just know your basics. And be good with people, work well with people. That's the most important. And have fun, and have fun for the next few years of your early stage in the career, because I was very serious and that burned me out. So one lesson learned: don't worry too much. Just experiment and learn as much as you can. Be open-minded, and just show that you're really, really interested by asking a lot of questions, and you can start from there, and you don't need to know everything. So just get your grade and do the best you can, and then surround yourself with the right people if this is the kind of career path you want to move forward. And we're here on digital space, particularly myself. I'm now in a leadership role where I'm making sure that the longevity of this industry move forward, wherever you're from. So, and I welcome all Filipinos to reach out to me, and I'm always here to just plant the seed and keep inspiring and motivate. Because it still inspires me to this day, and I might have changed my desk right now. It's not quite as detailed and as techy, but I'm still doing the work. I'm still working. I actually still coaching people in this space, to professionals and leaders in this space. So I'm just grateful that I can be that rock, and help the older generation to pass on their knowledge and their wisdom to the next new one that's going to pave the way. And nothing more, I encourage all Filipinos to do the same, that you have a place as well, because I think I really do, that our culture of being so welcoming and opening is so needed in aerospace, because it's a very challenging, very niche. From my own experience, it has its very challenge, because everything we do is unique, and it's never been done before most of the time. And so we need a lot of creative minds and different backgrounds, and it's going to help move us further into space that who knows what the future is. And this voice alone, Risa, and we'll be long gone before, but we played we're part of the history now. So yeah, just so grateful, very proud to be Filipino, and bring back this knowledge and experience and wisdom back to the Filipinos here. And whoever's listening, the students themselves, don't worry, you're gonna be fine. And you'll be surprised how kind people are, and they can see when you're willing to learn. And that's all you can do. My stepdad, an engineer, always taught me you can only do your best. And so that's the mindset I've always. So I don't put a lot of pressure on myself, and I pass that forward for you all, the younger ones too, that are going in this path. And I'd love, more than love, my wish that Philippines will represent in some way in the future of aerospace moving forward, because it's here to stay, and it's a lot of amazing work happening, I can tell you that. Thank you for listening. I hope I didn't take up too much space, but it's just been, and I hope that the examples of work gives you a perspective of what analog technology and the census that goes in with some of these well-known programs that have recently been launched and is about to be launched, particularly the autonomous rocket. That's a big one, and it's nice to be part of that program. And so I look forward to it when it does launch. Thank you.
Thanks, Rowena. Um, I forgot to is it Riza next or Ari? Who wants to go first? Let's take Ari first.
I can go ahead and step up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can go here. Yeah, sorry, JP. Was the original question? Sorry, thank you, Rowena. That was very in depth. Was the original question just where do we see the future of aerospace
Yeah.
and the technologies that we can see our newly graduated students entering in? Okay, so I am in aerospace, but I'm also in defense, so I can be specific and not specific at the same time. So I'll just speak in broad terminologies, but in definite areas that we do need people in. And I will say that an emerging trend, especially for commercial flights, are electric hybrid engines. We're going to need people who are more than willing to reinvent the engine. We are literally reinventing the wheel. Step up, get excited, because there are designs that, I mean, are reliable. They're 40 years old, but they need to be reinvented. We're entering a new world where we can't always rely on oil. We're going to need microchips. We're going to need competitive microchips because it's not an infinite resource, so you got to be smart with it. Off the top of my head, also autonomous flight. I know that we're looking into anyone seen those helicopter taxis? Those flying taxis? Yeah, that's not, a joke. That's not Star Trek. That's real. That's happening in the next 2-3 years. And it's expensive now, but it'll get to the point where it's affordable for everybody. So be on the lookout for that. AI. AI is a huge area that we're looking for people. So if you're a programmer, if you're really being into systems, if you are good into designing and working with AIs of the future, we need you. That is 100% something that we need to utilize, especially in terms of not only programming and piloting, but data management. I can't tell you, and I think Riza and Rowena can speak to this. When you get into the industry, don't be disheartened when you're, set in front of a computer and the program that you're working on is literally 20 to 30 years old, because that's just how it is. Sometimes the technology is just really, really old, and you're going to kind of be like, oh, this is what I got my degree for? Is this the mighty aerospace? No, that is what it is, and it's reliable, and you are here to improve it. Help us make it new. Help us make it cool. Help us make it exciting. We're also going to need to rely a lot on simulated data. So we're going to need a lot of, I'm sure you've seen AI Flight Pass. I know I do. That's what I watch on YouTube for fun in my spare time. We need people who are willing to drive us to the future. Additive manufacturing, that's a huge one too. Additive manufacturing, that's a huge thing. Lightweight materials, making things lighter so they go farther and we don't have to take up as much waste and as much space. And it's mostly just that and simulation solutions. We are looking for you. If you've got these skill sets, if you are up to the challenge of reinventing an industry that has existed for well over 100 years and make it better so that it can go on for 100 years more, please step up. We welcome the challenge and we love it. We love to see it. And Rowena's right. We are here in the digital space to mentor you. So if you have questions, if you have doubts, if you ever like, I don't know if I'm doing it right, no one knows what they're doing. I'll be the first to say that. No one knows everything going into the industry. That's why you ask questions, you make friends, you ask the right mentors to help you out. You're wary, especially as a woman. I don't know who created this invisible script where if there's only one woman at the table and there's only one seat allocated for a woman at the table. No, pull up your chair. There's more than enough room for more than enough women at every table. So don't cut yourself short by saying, oh, well, they've filled that box for, the person of color, the Filipino person. No, it's invisible script. Pull your chair up, be a part of the conversation. Take us to the next realm. Right, Riza?
Yes.
Yes. How about you, Riza? What are your Oh yeah, go ahead, Rowena.
No, I'm just all by Ari's, her just power on, her
We can
like
do
energy.
it.
Yes, yeah, no, I totally agree because I've always been in question, like, okay, I've been stuck in this, analog and it's great, but I'm also like having this constant conversation with my peers. Come on, guys, this is the way forward. And then they know it's coming. It's only time when this is going to push aerospace to a different level altogether. So I'm excited how the mergence of the old and the new are going to come together. But I do recognize that, there is a great appreciation that they're recruiting, some of the old school, just the wisdom in themselves, and then the young minds who are already tech savvy, to bring these two systems together. And yeah, I'm just excited what Ari's been mentioning. For sure, everything that she mentioned, I kind of forgot, but yeah, there's definitely a move towards all of these. And just don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and your mind dirty. I mean, you gotta get comfortable to experiment and dare sometimes. And when leaders allows it, oh my God, take advantage for sure.
100%. Yeah.
Agree. Riza, what do you think? What's next in the aerospace industry? I know we discussed a lot before, like space tourism. I think there's. Can you expound on what the future industries will be, or supporting industries around space tourism?
Yeah, sure thing. Ari touched on a lot of the kind of the aeronautical and airplane side of things, as far as kind of the space and space tourism. We call it space tourism now, but it's a way for us to really pave that way for people to get to space. Right now, it's short. Um, you know, one way and one 10-minute ride at Blue, and I think SpaceX is doing more of like the Leo orbit travel, but those we're hoping to expand further into to more of hopefully people can travel further than Leo. So essentially the with kind of that kind of deeper or going into space into these manned missions. I think Rowena already touched on this. You need to have like innovation, specifically in the materials area. A lot of the things that you're going to encounter, you'll need specialized materials for anti-radiation. Type of stuff. High both any material that can withstand both really hot and very cold temperatures at the same time is something that's still a challenge for us, because you're talking your engine is really hot on fire launching up into space, and then all of a sudden once you get into space basically in cryo. So how do you protect your basically the spacecraft? How do you protect the rocket? And that comes with materials. So that's the field that I'm in. So everything that Rowena was touching on a while ago, materials and processes folks, if you have a chemistry background, chemical engineering background, that's something to go into for this is towards materials. You're going to have to make this all very cheap. You're going to need corrosion experts. You're going to need people that can come up with ways to refurbish this rocket over and over again, to make your space travel cheaper. As I said, reusability is a big one. So how can we create parts that aren't going to fall apart after 2 or 3 or 4 uses? Essentially, we're moving towards making rockets and engines that into almost where airplanes are now. And then the future, if you've ever seen Expanse, that's what I envision. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, but what I envision in terms of being able to travel into space and back and having the option. So with that, there's also, I think this was already mentioned, communication. There's for satellites folks, this is a big one. Anyone in the electronics field, computer field, we need communication between, once we're up in space, and we need communication back to earth, and more faster communication back to earth. So that's another field that's really a big one. And not even in the engineering realm or technical realm. Once you're in space, you need a way to be able to what dispose of your waste. You need to be able to have food last for a long time, because let's face it, space travel in a long distance, it's gonna take a lot of time, right? So stuff like that, where how do we encase our food? I mean, astronaut food right now is not the best. It's all over the place. You can ask astronauts, they would say the same thing. It's not the best. So like, there's space food challenges going on. So if you're in culinary, that's another place to really to also partake in the space industry. So what I'm trying to say is the space travel and the way that aerospace is going now, we're going to need everybody to get us to the next phase. And so don't limit yourself into engineering. If your background was in something else, I am very sure you're going to find a place in the aerospace industry. Heck, there's people in the travel industry that are now quote unquote customer experience or astronaut experience folks at my work. Like, who would have thought that a person could have the title of lead of custom of astronaut experience? As in that respect, it's there's a lot that's going on in the industry, and it's so very exciting. It's all very fast paced. So, and I said this to I like this quote a lot, and it's um, don't settle for what your eyes can see. Really know that it's ever changing, especially in the aerospace field. So it may be that you're the first to discover that job, that industry. So for the students out there, I just want to say, remember that. Know that you're not limited to what still exists. There's a lot of things going on in the space industry that you can be a part of. And if you really grabbed onto anything that I said, or are curious to any other links into kind of the space exploration zone, let me know and message me. I'm a resource, like Ari and Rowena use as resources to really ask about what's next. If you have an idea, maybe your idea is fantastic, and I'd love to hear it. So any of the students out there, please feel free to reach out at any time for any type of advice, or if you just need someone to say, "Good job, you're doing great." We're all here for you.
Thank you, Riza. That's enlightening to, or refreshing. How should I say? Um, that's exciting to hear that there's a lot of jobs, possible jobs for our future um, aerospace engineers, or not even engineers. Um, should I'm tempted to ask if you know anybody who's working on the space toilets, or if there's a department of space plumbing in Blue. Uh, but I'm not sure if you want to answer. So on that note, we'll take a short break. If anybody wants to take a quick number one break, we'll go to the next part. It's really quick because we have some listeners who have questions. So we'll be right back, and this is a good opportunity for anyone who has any questions to message it to me on Twitter, or on the Facebook stream, the Facebook comments of the Makati House Facebook page. And I do apologize. I just realized that the Makati House Twitter account wasn't accepting message requests. So you can send messages now to the Makati House account, and I will read them through. Or if you want to ask them personally to Ari, Riza, or Rowena, you can do that. So we'll be back in a minute. Welcome to the Twitter space of Makati House. Our mission is to help Filipinos help other Filipinos. Women are widely recognized to be successful in the area of fashion and beauty. They are expected to behave with finesse as if their capacity is limited to just so-called feminine careers. But there are women who break the gender bias and are willing to take off their heels and remove their makeup in order to succeed in male-dominated fields in science and engineering. We have invited three women in the aerospace industry to share their journey in breaking the bias. Join our chat with Ari Dion from Parker Aerospace, Risa May from Blue Origin, and Rowena Lugo. A reminder, our space is recorded and being streamed live to Facebook, YouTube, and Clubhouse. Once again, welcome to Makati House. All right, we're back. So the next up is we're gonna stop geeking out because we don't want to. Well, I'm pretty sure not everyone was falling asleep with the discussion. So for Rowena, I know that Rowena moved back or moved out of the aerospace industry and um, became a professional coach or personal coach. So I can imagine that the aerospace industry can get tense and stressful at times. You know, um, with there's zero tolerance for failure, like Rowan said. That, like for example, the James Webb Telescope was uh, took more than two decades of assembly and production and lots of planning. And you get only one shot to put it there at the Lagrange point. Um, so there's no room for error. So I can imagine it could get stressful where you have to meet the budget, the timeline, and without any errors. You can't have any bugs here, or there's no second life in space. Um, so yeah, Rowena, can you share with us what tips you can give on how um, on how professionals can keep their mental health at check and maybe a brief story on why you're doing this.
Yes, this is really interesting. Like I said, with the diversity of professional work that I've been really a part of for so long. At the very beginning of my transition from graduating, as some of you students here are about to go into and then entering the professional workplace, it can be a shock. And that is the moment, I think, the first 2 or 3 years I entered that I experienced my first burnout by mid 20s, I think after 26 years old. And I didn't realize that it's not it's totally different way of working and producing, and then being at university and still have that sense of freedom. This is the real thing now. And so you feel a sense of obligations and responsibility to meet the demands that you're being paid for. And so I get that. However, like, us here as Filipino women, and with being a minority as well, that also has multi layers of added pressure, right? So not only the obligation of being at work and meeting what's required, but also, who you are, and it can be very, very lonely and isolating. And I certainly experienced that. I had no representation of that looks like me. And so I'm having to internalize a lot of the mental struggles and doubts and imposter syndromes, and when things don't work out and I'm having technical issue. uh, Again, I grew up with a father who was highly educated, perfectionist, a lot of high expectations. So I brought that mindset into the workplace. However, it's not the most sustainable. And so I had to learn the hard way and realize I need some release. But the release that I was doing wasn't healthy either. And so that was the beginning of my healthy lifestyle journey. And I'm so grateful even to this day, that I met my husband, who introduced me, being from SoCal in San Diego, who understood about healthy smoothies and healthy lifestyle. And he really introduced me of a different way of taking care of yourself, right? And I was already accustomed to outdoors. And so we had this similar interest. So we got out. We spent our weekend as an outdoor warriors, camping, exploring, just to enable the mind to break free from the routine tasks, the daily pressures at work and the stress. And that was the game changer for me, was to allocate those precious weekend, even for half a day, to just do something that's non-mechanical, non-structured, no rules, no protocols to follow. That helped my brain to actually get some sort of room to process those difficult challenges and the pressure, and then focus on something that's completely the opposite, that you're free to express and free to do. And I wasn't the kind of person that really deal with emotion very well. And I'm more practical. And so the outdoor made sense for me to get practical, whether, how do I get from A to B to ensure that I don't get blisters, still problem solving. Or, take my camera. I did a lot of photography and that was my outlet. So it was still practical, but in a way that was less sabotaging to my mental health. Instead of internalizing things isolated in a room in the dark, away from people that I don't have. And I didn't have a lot of people around me, but I'm just fortunate enough to have a husband who gave me a different way of being and experience my world differently. And what I discovered is that when I'm moving my body, I was able to solve. I was still solving the problems at work, but not in a way that added more pressure. It was more enjoyable, because I was also enjoying something that was less structured at the same time. So when I went back to work, I was more energized. I made better decisions. My mindset was more clear, and then I wasn't in my mood was definitely a big player, because you got to be in a good mood to stay focused, to stay civil and compassionate with your peers, because there are going to be times where things kind of break loose, and tensions, and unintentionally, because you have personal lives to balance as well. So it's really important also to nurture that personal relationship, that private intimacy you have at home, because there are times that you're going to feel alone, and who do you confide to? The people you most trust. I hope you do. And if you don't, there are going to be people like us who you can actually reach out, that we do also have feelings. We experience these as well. And not just because we're Filipinas and we're submissive, and there's nothing to do with any of that. We can still break. And this jobs is for the long haul. And to stay on that, you gotta learn when to take a break, when to pause and not feel guilty doing so. That's the big one, because it feels like, oh, we gotta do some distract ourselves, so it feels better in the moment. But in the long term, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you're not encouraging joy that is a little bit more, that keeps you alive and energized. It's more of a function and more of a task that's you're already doing at work. So why not balance that out? Make a day of your week to do something that gives you pleasure, that really nourishes your whole spiritual part of yourself, because you're still, there's still part of you that's not a robot. You're not there to like follow every single rules and books under the sun. And it's your brain is going to thank you for it. And I say that because we use a lot of our brain in this type of line of work. It is very cognitive taxing, energy consuming tasks. And to remain focused, that takes endurance, mental endurance. And it's enough for any of us to break. And I've had my moments to balance that out. particularly spending a lot of time with computers with a ton of complicated data, to remain, above my, to remain focused on my position, so I can function and be, you know, um, collaborative with my peers and remain that way. And not everyone is very good at that. And that's where it motivated me, that if the focus is so much on ensuring that we have this amazing machine that we're about to launch in this extreme unknown environment into orbit or into deep space in other planets, right? Why can't we do the same right now with people too, to stay on this industry for as long as it can? Because we also break. There is tension, there is pressures, there's similarity that breaks and get loose, and I saw the connection, and I'm already doing the healthy lifestyle, and I was inspired to like use my voice now and my mindset. How can I shift the hearts and mind of my peers to know that you're not just here to act and do tasks like robots. You're also a human being, and you do experience pain, and because I saw the gap in the decline of longevity in the STEM, across the STEM industry, why not be the voice? And I just felt, and I had to think about this a long time and talk to my bosses, the chief and the directors, about my pursuit to move away from the desk, and then now to speak and inspire, and do some practical tips on how to overcome some of these challenges, these mental health challenges, and eating the right food and drink right, and get home and still sustain that connection, that intimate connection with your relationship at home, with your loved ones and your parents and your sisters and brothers, because we need to feel, we still have a human needs, the love, a sense of belonging, and that sense of safety. And these are core of who we are as humans. And if we don't have we don't feel safe, we don't feel belong, or we don't feel love, how do people, any of us, expect to continue to work in this type of industry? Because this is going to be a long haul. This is not just a one-time shot, 3-month project. This is years and decades. And so I saw the connection with what I learned from deep space, and just the highly focus on you only have one shot. It's like what if today's your last day and you don't get to see the fruit of your work, whatever that means, that whatever you're really passionate about. And that really got me thinking about how fragile we are as humans, and as just a collective being on this earth. We can never create further if all of us are sick and mentally, like broken. So I realized I needed to step out. I explained these to my bosses, and they totally understood, and they're so happy, because there hasn't been a support system in this space. And now I'm really, nurturing, to connect with all aerospace and engineering and anything in between, tech, to stay on the game, but at the same time, don't neglect you. This doesn't exist without any of us. And so, at the end of the day, I realized people are not that mean. There's just some underlying stuff that they haven't been able to get support, and there hasn't been anyone to hold them safe, to to release some of those problems. And I haven't seen one. If I have, I would have known already, but I didn't get it. I didn't get that support. And so I'm stepping out of my desk and moving into an unknown territory that I didn't think was possible. Who would have thought, a geek tech girl like me, who grew up in a rice paddy, eating frogs, and harvesting peanuts at 4 a.m. in the morning, and living on a bamboo house with limited resources, could be speaking up like this, talking with a British accent. Anything is possible, to be honest. And I think Filipinos culture has been like, I go back to Filipino culture. They our way of thinking, the way we're so hospitable and welcoming to our peers, has become such an important of keeping the collective team together to work together instead of breaking each other apart during because there are times of pressures in this kind of line of work. And so communication, compassionate communication is key, and building more leadership. It doesn't matter what level you are, but if you can start with you and invest in yourself, in your personal growth, oh my God, like you can like speak like any other president of the Philippines, to be honest, and influence the minds and hearts of the people of the Filipinos and Filipinas across all over the world. That we all are very, very diverse, nations now, located everywhere. And so I'm just doing my part. I thought I left aerospace, but I realized I never did. I just basically added the new skills under my belt, like everything else. And then now I'm putting those together and facilitating that space that's so needed, the support system and the accountability needed, that maybe a lot of the aerospace company and the high tech, the big tech don't currently have, and but may maybe will work really well with someone who's lived it and worked in it as well, and that would make it very easier to be relatable. And that's what I'm doing now, doing the very thing. But I hope in terms of what I shared, and these are all being practiced in the real world. So I share those tips. Just keep it simple because it's not an easy to about mental health because it's such a broad issue for different types of people. But what I say is like dare to experiment outside of your comfort zone and just see
Right.
and play.
Thank you, Rowena. I've heard Ari and Riza exchange affirmations before. Just really quick, do you have anything to add on supporting each other or finding keeping your mental health at bay, Riza or Ari?
Go on vacation.
Amen. Go on
Yes.
vacation. The opposite
Word.
of trauma is play. And when I mean
Yeah.
play, sometimes it doesn't mean, like I'm going to set time aside to be creative. Sometimes it's just building Legos for 4.5 hours with no design in mind. It's just meaningful creation without any purpose or end. Play is the opposite of trauma. Sometimes you need to carve out time for yourself to just travel, eat food, get fat together when you go on vacation with your friends. That is the ultimate goal. That's the end game in life, is just do something and get to yourself to a point where you do something because you want to and not because you have to, and you get as far away from work as possible because that's what keeps your brain healthier.
Yeah, I think and surrounding yourself too with the people that'll remind you um to take a break, whenever we keep each other in check. As Ari said, we have like this mini group chat with her and our other friend Vivian. We're all kind of in this tech field, and we just sometimes we just vent to each other like, this is what's going on, really stressed
Yes.
out, guys. And then we just bounce off of each other like, no, you could do this, or hey, take the day off tomorrow, let's go out and let's have fun. It's just it's nice to have people to share. So find your group, find your space, surround yourself with the people that will just encourage you, not just to strive for the best, but also encourage you to take a pause and take care of yourself. So yeah, I think that's what I have to add.
I see a lot of hearts there and a lot of reactions. Finally, Riza, well, while we have you, you did mention you're working on a couple of side projects. Just really briefly, because we have Justine here who has a question. But let me ask mine first. How can we present this industry as a competitive option to the much younger generation? I know you've mentioned farm, and we also have club for the future. Can you explain what farm is first?
Yes, absolutely. And thanks so much for letting me share this here. So I'm a part of an organization, a for impact organization called Farm. It is founded by all Filipinas. They're Saint School, I think, graduates. So they put together this concept of, okay, we see the disparity in education in different areas of the world, and given our experience too, in the when we went to school in the Philippines, and the difference of how that was when we went to school here in the United States. And I think some other people in that group also went to school elsewhere. Essentially, we want to bridge the gap, um, and bring that opportunity to learn about tech, and potentially introduce tech and various applications of it, various areas of it, to even younger generations. As I said before, if I had only known earlier, I would have been in this industry from the get go. This is my passion. And so, kids, they won't know what their passion is unless they won't find out too. And I think not even kids, sometimes as graduates from high school, you don't know what you don't really know what you want to do. And so, being having this exposure, we hope to introduce this as a potential area, to for the kids to venture into. So our modules for our summer program in Farm, that's piloting in the Philippines, are going to be in computing and robotics, AI, and art hacking, digital citizenship, and there's a last one that I'm unfortunately forgetting. But essentially, we're trying to create a holistic education experience and bringing that to the underserved communities of the world. So we're piloting that, as I said, in the Philippines. If you're interested in helping out, there's a couple of ways. One, we're running a device donation drive for Farm. This device donation drive is continuous. We're always accepting devices, and the list of devices are laptops, cell phones, VR equipment if you have it. If not, it's all good. We can find ways to utilize cell phones in a like cardboard box to do that. And essentially, we these used devices, so you don't have to donate your old laptops and whatever, so that these devices will go to the kids. They will use it during their modules and programs, and they can keep it afterwards. And that will hopefully help too, because right now with the pandemic, we saw how much of a disparity there is in education too, because some of the our kids don't even have access to technology to do their online learning. So these device donation drive will help as well with those students that were taking on the program. Second way to help is we're looking for people to help us out in the Metro Manila area. We need people to volunteer in facilitating our modules. So as I mentioned, computer and robotics, AI, and machine learning, art hacking, digital citizenship. So if you're interested, let me know and I can send you some information. As I said, the pilot will be in the Philippines, in the Metro Manila area. So that's for Farm. As far as what the Blue Origin is doing through Club for the Future, we have a program called postcards. Basically, send a postcard to space. So as some of you may know, it's really expensive to send um, anything up to space at the moment, for you to have to get space in one of the rockets, so that your experiment or whatever it is that you're gonna send up makes it up to space. It You have to either have like such a you have to have connections or a lot of money to bring into it, or really have a great idea, and so someone took it on and sponsored your project. Well, through postcards, we are giving people an opportunity to send a quote unquote payload into space. So you have your own postcard that you would fill out. You would send it over to Club for the Future. They will load it in one of our rockets that will be going into space, and then afterwards they will be sending it back to you with a stamp that says it flew into space. And so with this, we're hoping to spread the word about space exploration, and especially with the kids, and really give them an opportunity to touch something that went to space and really feel that that's a reality for them, and really feel that it's a possible field for them to go into. Oh, there's something called space. So aside from the movies and aside from the media that's going out, we have these postcards that will give kids something tangible that they can say, oh man, this went into space, and maybe gain their interest as well in that point. And then just in general, please encourage kids, especially young girls, to go into this industry, the space industry, or just the tech industry in general. As Ari has mentioned earlier, we don't need to put gender into these positions. They're all just positions. It's not a female engineer, not a male engineer. It's just engineering. And if that means you buy a Lego set for your niece instead of another doll, which people used to gift me a lot of dolls, for some reason. Maybe a Lego set would help, or another something else that's like scientific would be a better present. Because you never know, you might encourage them to go into that field, and you might actually have a scientist, engineer, mathematician, or doctor in your family. So please, I encourage you, start at home, and start that encouragement, especially with the girls at home. I think that is all. Thank you so much, JP, for letting me share that with everybody.
You're very much welcome. That's very. I'm envious of the kids. Just to be clear, is this limited to kids or um, uh, childlike minded folk like me can send postcards to?
Oh my gosh! No, everybody can send postcards to space. And actually, JP, if you give me contacts for the colleges that we partnered with here, I can send over a box of postcards, so that you guys can go ahead and fill them out and send them over. But yeah, anyone can send a postcard to space. We're not discriminating here.
All right, cool. Yeah, and Makati House is willing to help facilitate the shipment and printing the back of the postcards as well, and paying for the postage to send it to Blue.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, just let me know. We'll coordinate.
Great, great. And yeah, so let's take Justine's question. Justine, are you still there?
Yes, hello.
Yeah, go ahead, please ask your question. Just say who it is for and your question.
Okay, hello, I am Justine, current second year student from Ateneo de Davao, currently taking BS Aerospace Engineering. I am actually one of officers in the organization of Lipad, which is in co-speaker for today. But I think exam season for my classmates right now, so I apologize if if there are very little of us dito na nag-participate. But actually, I really had a lot of questions earlier about your talks. But as we progressed, most of the questions that I had were answered already, about mental health, about the women in the industry, because we are considered as a minority there. But maybe I would like to ask. I have mentioned earlier that I am a college student, a second year, and for next year. In my third year, we are actually are gonna be having our theses, and I'm quite worried of what topic that I should take. And I really want to make this thesis really meaningful for me. Like, I don't want to make a thesis that just for the sake of it. I want to really go into the my course and to really maybe make it as a stepping stone for me to really go into the aerospace industry, because honestly, currently I am my apathy levels are really high. So I am really finding motivation in still continuing this course, and I thought of maybe I will join now to this talk. I will talk to the speakers here, and maybe you can give some inspiration or ideas or topics that me, a college student in Philippines, could go into. I This is addressed to anyone here that can answer my question.
Hey, Justine, thank you so much for joining. I mean, just off the top of my head, and this is in no way a plug, it just so happens, I'm actually a member of the International Academy of Astronautics' Committee for Space Traffic Management. So if you wanted something that was really unique and really, a thesis that really stands out from, I'm sure, your other peers, I would address space junk, the laws revolving around satellites that are no longer functioning, and whose job it is to clean it up, because these fall to the ocean. They either lose Earth's gravitational pull and they go out of orbit. But like, who's really controlling this? I think that space law, although very small right now, a very small part of um, our society right now, it's going to explode in the next 10 years as part of like, whose responsibility is it for cleaning up trash after it leaves Earth's surface? What defines, you know, ownership when you're out there in space and you have a Chinese vessel and an American vessel? What precludes one from communicating with one another, because neither are touching Earth, so space traffic management, space collision, space junk. I've actually got contacts in that if you'd like any more information on research papers, but that's my bid. So space traffic management, space junk, space law, and everything in between.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Justine, I guess I have a few clarification questions for you before I can answer that. And I messaged you here on Twitter so we can further discuss. But off the top of my head, I think I said this a while ago. Deep space food challenge is a big one that I could think of. There's a worldwide competition even that's going on that you could potentially venture into, and then and look at. But yeah, it really depends on what field attracts you. If it's in the field of aerospace materials, I have some experience in that. If it's in the field of more of like I guess aircraft or spacecraft development, I also have some design experience from my thesis that we could potentially talk about expanding. And then, but yeah, I could think of something, because you know what will help too with the deep space food challenge is creating better ways for us to address food. It can potentially even help with like malnutrition crises, and that's very relevant to areas like the Philippines, where that's actually pretty prevalent. So yeah, that's off the top of my head topics I could think about, but I'm willing to discuss more if you have a specific area in mind, and we can definitely explore options for you.
Thank you so much for that. And yeah, actually, I was interested in the space food because my seniors were having a discussion about it. So I saw your request, and I will contact you. Thank you so much for opening that.
Yeah, of course, no problem.
Hi, I wanted to share. I realize aerospace is such a diverse and so many problems to solve. There are as many people as there are problems. So, in terms of space focus, my job is to provide and facilitate clarity and vision in this space. So I do some session, and I'd be happy to offer my one session with you and get some clarity to ensure that what also is the most important is what you want. And sometimes that is the most challenging, is knowing what we want, even despite how much there are information. It's still trying to get that clarity, and what that actually looks like for you is really an important part of the process, is knowing what you want and that feels good for you. And so I'm more than happy to give you the opportunity to experience that level of clarity and focus. And then once you gain those clarity, you can use any of our resources, Risa and Ari's knowledge and their networks, to direct and push that discovery that you may find through the discussion, and then that will propel you laser focus on how to move forward. But it's always difficult to start, because I've definitely struggled. What am I going to focus on? And when you don't know, and there's just so much information, especially now. And I wish I had someone that gave a space for me to give me that clarity, so I understood what I'm getting myself in, and to make sure that everything is aligned, that focus area is also going forward into your career path as well. So I'll be happy to just connect with me. And it's pretty easy these days, with all of these audio in technology. I'd be happy to give you the opportunity that I never had, or most of us didn't. And now I get to use this skills that I have now invested in, and put it to good use. And I'd be happy to pave the way for that for you.
Thank you so much po. May I ask where contact? Maybe I can contact Sir JP Low for contact information, or what do you prefer po, sir?
Yeah, I mean, email, social media. I'm active on Instagram, but JP has my email address, so just contact JP, and then through that introduction, it's just an easy, connection on Zoom, or whatever means of communication you have, as long as we both have internet. And then I'll just ask you, very focus-driven questions, and then once we have that session, the goal is to give you enough clarity to push some of those discoveries, and then use any of us resources, because I get the food bit, because that's where I focus in. I'm a health coach as well, so I'm definitely into the whole food thing and the longevity of human space travel. And so that may help me too, and you, to get some clarity, because I can definitely relate when it comes to the food that's so needed to keep those astronauts alive and kicking and doing what they're good at doing. And so yeah, I think this could be a good direction for you. Just a little push, a little bit of a support system, and then, because I know, the number one thing I've learned is that we all have innate know-how of what we really want. We just need somebody to kind of help navigate where we're at right now, and move forward. And with the resource that Risa and Ari has provided, and JP facilitating the space, yeah, and all the other students, I definitely encourage to speak to any of us. And we've gained quite a good amount of powerful skills that's going to help support you and the rest of the students moving forward. And that's what we're here, showing up.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I really appreciate the support that you're giving to our students and our future colleagues in the aerospace industry. They could be the future Gwyn Shotwells of the world. And we're also joined by Samantha, who is the president of Lipad, our co-presenter. Samantha, could you speak a little bit about Lipad, or if you have any questions to the speakers before we wrap up and go through announcements?
All right, thank you so much, Sir JP, for that very overwhelming and very flattering introduction. And of course, good morning from the other side of the world here in the Philippines. It's already, I know it's not good morning, it's good afternoon. So, hi, good day to Miss Riza, to Mr. Wena, and to Miss Ari. Thank you so much for being our speakers for this event. And of course, to Justin, thank you so much for asking these three very powerful women right now in the aerospace industry. And just to give a very brief background on our organization, which is LIPAD. LIPAD stands for Liga ng mga Inhinyerong Panghimpapawid at Pangkalawakan ng Ateneo de Davao. So it is an academic organization of the aerospace engineering students here in Ateneo de Davao, where we also design, collaborate with aerospace engineering related projects such as the study and development of satellites and rockets. That also drives for students to also cultivate their leadership and also harness their capabilities and abilities in order to sorry for my voice, in order to improve the lives of the Filipinos through aerospace research. And we all know that aerospace engineering is a very new course here in the Philippines. And I believe that Ateneo de Davao is the only university here in the Philippines is still offering this course. So I think this is also a very good platform for the Philippines to also um, to have a very different kind of take or different kind of view when it comes to the aerospace industry. So our mission is to, as what I've said, to provide projects and workshops and also a platform for aerospace students to create projects for the betterment of the Philippines in an aerospace aspect. And yeah, our goal is to intellect the members of the organization and also to spread awareness to all of the people out there that space technology is really important in our society, most especially that technology really plays a vital role now in our world because our world is very technologically savvy. So we really need to cope up with the technological advancements. And for us, we want to happen it here here in the Philippines. So yeah, that's a very brief background of what our organization is all about. I hope that all of the listeners here in our Facebook Live, also Twitter Space, and also in Spotify, I believe that you could take you this talk would have a special take on you that aerospace industry is such a beautiful industry with such beautiful women. It is the epitome of this is Miss Riza, Miss Rowena, and Miss Ari. And I hope that me and Justin and all of the aerospace engineering students would also be like you in the future to bring pride to our country and also to bring technological advancements here in the Philippines. So thank you so much once again to this three beautiful women, and we really look up to you and um you really served as an inspiration for us to really thrive and to really love the aerospace industry. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Samantha. That was a very good introduction of Lipad, and it's really amazing to see the women in your university leading the student org. I've been in that position where I've had to start a student org, and uh, I don't know how successful I was at that, but I've been in that position, and it's not an easy spot. And thank you for lending your time to and your resources to help us with this event. So just for some quick announcement, so we have donated to Planet Cora. which is also a women-led nonprofit. And we our donation is in honor of Ari, Riza, and Rowanna. Their names will be inscribed on the new fishing boat that will be built in partnership with the women-led Batang VIP project in Batangas. It will be the donation will be used in rebuilding of a fishing boat that was destroyed by Typhoon Kinta. So when the boats are built, we'll send you photos of your names, and I'm also going to fund some little flags that they'll put on the boats. So we'll have the Lipad logo on the boat as well. So that's gonna be pretty cool. We'll build we'll make a short film about it. Um, and it will be amazing to see your names on the boat in honor of the Filipino spirit and Filipino pride. So yes, before we end the room, I want to ask the three speakers what your parting words are for our young listeners, not just to the women, but to the men as well, to the young men, because I've been in that place as well. I was young and obnoxious, probably not the nicest guy to the women in the industry. So, what would be your parting words? How to be how can the men be nicer in the industry, and what's the glimmer of hope that you can give to the young women? Just really quick, so I think so we don't go too late. Let's go with Risa, and then Ari, and then Rowena.
Oh man, you had to start with me. I'm still thinking. No, I think for all the I'll start with the guys. Just be supportive. Be a champion. As I've said before, if you know anyone, any woman in your life, encourage them to stay in the field. If you see someone struggling in your class, man or woman, help them out. This industry is a fun one, and we want to make sure everybody has a great experience. But yeah, just be very kind, and if you see a woman struggling, because she might be the only one in class, so it's a little bit difficult to speak up sometimes. Really be the person maybe to encourage them to speak, or give them an opportunity to speak. um, for the women, just because you don't see anyone there that looks like you yet, doesn't mean that you don't belong there. This space is just as equally for you as it is for everybody else, and I think that's more solidified now more than ever. So just stick to it. Really know that this is your passion, and really embrace it. Doesn't matter what people say, doesn't matter what hardships you go through. If this is your passion and this is where you want to be, you just stick to it and believe in yourself, because that's you're your best advocate and your best cheerleader. And I think I'll leave it at that, and pass it on to Ari and Rowena.
Thank you. First and foremostly, thank you so much for the kindness of allowing us to speak our truth and speak our experience. For the gentlemen in the room, I say it's three principles that you should always keep in mind whenever you're in any type of business setting. Be kind, be cognizant, and be curious. Even if you don't think that your voice has an impact, it does, whether you stand up for someone or, more notably, when you stand in silence, especially when jokes are being made. Try to keep jokes to a minimum. It's funny the first time, it's not funny the second time. So even if you think it's just ha 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 ha, no, stop it, knock it off. And more importantly, stand up for the women in your life, be they younger, older, the same age as you. when someone makes a joke, because it's not funny. It really isn't. And you don't know what type of toll it can take on someone's self-esteem, even if you think it was harmless. For the men and women in the room, this is your time. Like, we are at the forefront of an industry that is going to explode in popularity, in job opportunities, in creative growth over the next 10 years. And this is your time to shine, and this is your moment. Seize it. It can be lonely sometimes. You will often more than not have to be your own cheerleader, whether you're undergoing scrutiny from your parents, your peers, your inner circle. Refine your circle, find new friends, find the people who become your cheerleader squad, so it becomes a little more bearable to endure your journey. But it's worth it at the end of the day, because I remember being 20. I remember being insecure and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I can tell you it gets better. I can tell you the path makes itself clear the further you walk. Just don't stop moving. Keep going. It works itself out. It'll be okay. You will come out of the end of this successful, thriving, proud, and amazing. Carry on our legacy. Make this a better place for us. And I'm going to hand it off to Rowena.
Wow, Risa, Ari, as usual, always inspired by learning from both of you beautiful ladies. And once again, wow, 20 plus years working with the men in this industry. What can I say? There's definitely been a lot of ups and downs, but one thing for sure is that open-mindedness amongst the men to welcome women. Because imagine, like, women have been in the kitchen, keeping the household together, the family unity together in times of hardship. This is what aerospace is also about, and now we're bringing, our kind to a known environment, and a family, some community, really solid foundation is the core of sustaining that success, that longevity in going into these unknown spaces. And so the women I see now are so natural when it comes to unity and unifying all people together when times are tough. And I really encourage men to see that gift that women already have, that's so naturally built in, that's going to help this industry move forward. And I didn't get taught to cook at the very beginning, maybe not very good at emotion. My dad didn't kind of demonstrate that. However, I learned. But then there are so wonderful, beautiful women that that are so natural and gifted when it comes to being support when people are struggling. And I now I was able to do that in the workplace, and my peers appreciated that moral support to keep going. And so I really encourage men to just not every problem needs to be fixed. You don't need to fix it, but just be there, listen, and just smile. And that's all the women just need, that they feel heard and seen. You don't need to use your amazing brain techie to fix stuff. You already know that. We already know that. We just need that you're there as a support ally amongst us. And so, not every problem needs to be fixed, particularly when you're working with women, but you'd be surprised, some of us here are just simple people, and we also are encouraged to work alongside men, because I wouldn't have got here if I wasn't listening to my stepfather. And he's not exactly a female role model, but I was open to that, even though it may seem intimidating to have a man who speaks British English and I'm barely like touching the language. But I trust in myself, knowing that there are men, good men out there, that are willing to see through women's talent and gifts, and that's going to be a complete support in their quest too. And we're here to make your life easy too. I mean, we're not here to compete. But we have a natural gift, and that means unifying the community, the team, to work alongside each other and move to a common cause, and inspire more, and move our humanity forward, particularly here in the Philippines. So I think there's been a massive shift, attitude towards women in the Philippine culture, because my father was definitely the old school where man was the breadwinner. But I do believe, and I'm seeing it, that there are a lot of amazing Filipina, born straight out in the Philippines, who are really paving the way too, equally. And I'm just as inspired that they're doing that in their home country. And so the young generation of men, yeah, you definitely just need to be a support, and you also have a great contribution by just listening and smile. And not everything needs to be fixed on the get-go. So, and have fun working with the ladies, and enjoy the process with them. So that's all I've got to really say in sight of it. In spite of all of what I've experienced in a positive way, it's been wonderful, and without a doubt, I've met some amazing men who are very respectful, who are very aware of themselves, and I think self-awareness for men is key. And if you know yourself, and invest in yourself, you are gonna work so well with women of all levels, and other peers of men, no matter what levels. I think invest in yourself and know thyself goes a long way, when you bring that into the workplace. So thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Roanna. Yeah, standing, pretty good at it. Just standing around and smiling. I don't know. I might have a freakish smile, so I don't know if it might. I don't know if it will help. It might be, might do the opposite. But I'll take that into heart. Thank you, Roanna and Riza and Ari for your for your life pro tips. Finally, we'll be closing the room. I would just like to promote our next Twitter space on April 26th, 10 a.m. We will have two inspiring eco startups, Fortuna Cools and Loop, a sustainable lifestyle marketplace, both operating here in the Philippines, but also Fortuna Cools is operating globally. So follow us here on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, also YouTube, to to get updated on the next events, and we hope to see you or hear you again at the next events. And I'll hook up Samantha and Justine to our three wonderful ladies. And if anybody else wants to reach out to them, you can follow them on Twitter and Instagram, or you can reach out to us and we'll help you connect. And also don't forget about Farm and Club for the Future. And if anyone's looking for um, personal or professional coaching from Rowena, you can also reach out to her. And I think Irie is also recruiting to to join her team. Am I right, Irie?
100%. Yes.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, ladies. I know we're over time again as usual, and I appreciate the time and the patience that you given to us, despite the issues and the time delay and everything else. And we hope to see you around again soon, and we can do this one more time. And hopefully, when if we do this next year at the Women's History Month, we the gender gap will be much better next year, or we are at parity, like you said, tomorrow or in the next hours. So thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very
Thank you.
Thank
much.
you. Thanks, everybody.
Salamat.
Thank you so much,
Magandang,
everyone.
Salamat.
Thank you.
magandang mabuhay sa Pilipinas. Hopefully I can go home soon and speak my language again. I need to practice. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much, Sir JP and Makati.